Hey there! Welcome to my cat.net watercolor comic time-lapse video. This isn't the first time that I've uploaded a time-lapse video to YouTube, but it's actually the first time that I'm also adding audio commentary. I think I'll do more audio commentary for my videos from now on, talking about my process, about all kinds of drawing and painting related topics, comic creation in general. But for starters, I thought about just doing a little self-introduction, talking about how I started this project, or basically my artist's biography, how I got to where I am today, where I started, and so on. So yeah, let's start. I think, talking about my artist biography and how I got here, well, I think it's pretty much the same as most other, comic artists, manga artists, or many digital artists as well who grew up in the 90s. I think we were all influenced by the same kind of, series that we watched back then, that we read. Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball, discovering manga through that. Starting to copy the characters from the manga, getting really into the first few anime that you had back then, pretty much before you had access to internet. All you could do was just watch all the shows that were on TV, try to get your hands on as many as cool anime and manga that you could. I think I was around 11 or so when I first started reading the Dragon Ball manga. And that's when I began to pretty much copy off the cool characters and the cool scenes from the manga. And later, when I was about 12 or so, that's when I started reading Naruto. I was exactly the target audience for that. And that was about when I think I started to create my own cool ninja characters, who of course still looked very much like the characters you would see in Naruto. There was also the time when a lot of manga art competitions would pop up, and you could submit your own short story manga. I think I did this once or maybe twice, but I wasn't too serious about it and nothing came out of it because I was just 13 or something, 12 or 13. But I did work on a somewhat longer manga project myself around that time. I think I managed to get about 60 pages done, but I didn't care about sketching it out or anything. I just grabbed a sheet of paper, a pen, and just started drawing right away, and that's exactly how it looked. The characters often didn't fit right into the panels, so I just shortened their legs or whatever. Maybe I'll show it one day. But yeah, that was pretty much how I started, and I think how most comic artists or manga artists today started as well. Just basically from Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball out, going over Naruto, maybe Bleach, depending on if you're more into shonen or shoujo, of course. But I also kind of realized around 14, 15-ish that becoming a manga artist wasn't really a feasible career. So I kind of strayed away from manga and character design a little bit. I mostly stopped pretty much when I was around that time. And I was focusing more on concept art for video games, because that was another of my big passions. Video games, and still is. I think it's also not very surprising. And yeah, I saved up my money, and with around 15 years old or so, that was when I bought my very first Wacom graphics tablet. Still a really small one. I don't know, how big would you say it was? Maybe the size of a mouse pad, I guess. That's when I started getting more into digital painting, into concept art, or speed painting as it was popular back then. But back at that time, the early 2000s, that was even before YouTube was around, so there weren't really video tutorials you could follow around like today. back at that time, you really just had to really look hard for maybe some step-by-step image tutorials, like this is how I do my digital painting in 5 work-in-progress steps or something. But yeah, it was mostly like autodidactic learning, teaching myself how to do digital painting in Photoshop with all kinds of different brushes. Later on, starting some texture bashing methods and whatever. But I was also going away from character design and drawing characters, and I was more getting into environment art. I was mostly doing, yeah, let's say background art or environment design, and like science fiction or fantasy. I think I was just really into creating worlds and settings rather than characters. That was kind of something that piqued my interest more. Still some kind of creature design here and there, or some like spaceships or whatever. But I was continuing that for about 10 years, I'd say. Yeah, until my like mid-20s, around something-ish. Was getting better by that time. Maybe not super amazing as some real professional artist, but good enough to get some commission work here and then. Was happy to earn some money on the side through my art. That was nice. Having fun with a lot of little like indie projects. No real big fishes there, of course. No real actual companies. But yeah, I was happy doing that for the most part. But after 10 years or so, I think I got a little bit of a digital art fatigue. And just painting the same kind of settings over and over again, like the same fantasy castles, the same, I don't know, space stations or dragons or whatever over and over again, kind of lost its appeal to me, or it became a bit boring to only paint something with a main focus on the end result, looking cool, looking amazing. And also once you uploaded it to all these like concept art sites, you kind of realize that, well, everybody's just kind of doing the same thing. Somebody might be better and make the coolest spaceship and make the coolest dragon design or whatever, but it's basically still just like the same topic and the same ideas for the most part. And there just wasn't much of the actual character's personality in these pieces, I found. Which is of course totally fine for concept art. It's meant to just support the production of some IP in the video game or the movie sector. So of course that's the nature of concept art. But yeah, it kind of got a bit boring to me and maybe meaningless to a degree. And that's when I discovered more, let's say, traditional illustrators, freelance illustrators who were working more in the editorial illustration department, like doing cover illustrations for magazines. And that was a much broader field of topics, working for newspapers or whatever. And each of these artists really had their own style, and working with all kinds of interesting media, using textures so much differently, incorporating traditional art, mixing them with digital art. And yeah, each of these pieces really like fun to look at, not just cool, but interesting and fun. Lots of line art, so you can really see the hand of the artist moving and working in these pieces. And that just had so much more of an appeal to me suddenly, being able to draw something more freely and fun, something that you really enjoyed working on. So that's when I kind of stopped doing concept art, like digital art for the most part. Picked up classic pen and paper again and just drew whatever I liked, like fun or whatever like piqued my interest at that time, not really caring much about how cool it looks. Yeah, and I really enjoyed that. And that was also when I kind of rediscovered, comic art, manga art. Not that I pushed it away, but I never really, how would you say, didn't really consider my career to go into this direction again at some point in the future. Although I always liked storytelling and always had the idea of especially this cat that Nat story in my head. And I think if you ask any comic artist why they drew this story or why they wrote this story to an author, I think the answer is always, well, I had to. It's been like rolling around in my head for so long, getting bigger and bigger, becoming a full story, that I just had to get it out of my system. There was no other way. Yeah, and I think it was the same way for me. I've been carrying this story with me for many years now. Now is the time that I finally decided to sit down and take it more seriously and give it the space that it needs. Make it my #1 priority to work on the story. And that's really fun. I'm happy doing this, happy working on this sequential art, and seeing the story that I always had in my mind finally become something real and unfold in front of my eyes, become an actual thing and not just something that I would tell myself, well, I do it one day, not now, but one day in the future. It's great. I'm not even sure if I regret starting so late. I don't think my 10 years of concept art or digital art were wasted by any means. I think I still learned a lot about the foundations of perspective, anatomy, setting up a scene and whatever. So if I had started my comic 10 years earlier, it wouldn't have been the same comic as the one that I'm doing today. So I think that's totally okay. I don't mind it. No regrets in that aspect. But yeah, this was pretty much my artist biography, compressed but still longer than I thought it would take. Yeah. Thanks for sticking around till the end, listening to all of it. And I think for the next videos where I'm doing audio commentary, like I said, I'm talking more about my process in general, diving more into how I go about creating these pages, writing the story, and so on. And also about other art-related topics, drawing and painting in general. Yeah, so look forward to that. Yeah, thanks for sticking around. Hope you also enjoyed watching the time-lapse video, and I see you next time. Bye! Oh, and if you have any questions, feel free to either comment or come over to Twitch and ask me directly anytime I'm streaming.